This video is about Andrew Bridgen's libel case against Matt Hancock. It's not an endorsement of Andrew Bridgen. I'm entirely agnostic for the purposes of this video for any and all other matters relating to him, his vaccine stance or whatever else. But the video is not just about A. Bridgen Esquire, it's also about Matt Hancock, the ex-health secretary who used his tenure during the COVID shenanigans as an opportunity to wield the power of his office, not his personal power as a 4'5" little pipsqueak, but the power of his office, to terrorise his electors, the people who elected him, the people who put him into power. And we know that for a certain fact. This from the lockdown files, talking about another COVID variant. Hancock says, "We frighten the pants off everyone with the new strain," and then asking, when do we deploy the new variant? Hancock was clearly, from his tone, having sadistic fun playing a kind of war games in his mind against his electors. You deploy weapons of war. That's how you use the word deploy. And he talked about literally scaring people badly. This is the Health Secretary of the United Kingdom, or it was the Health Secretary. So whatever else you might think about Andrew Bridgen, if Hancock is currently being squeezed until the pips squeak, or until anything else squeaks, you might get some sadistic pleasure in return about seeing his current travails. So anyway, as a reminder, Andrew Bridgen tweeted this out early last year about the COVID vaccine. As one consultant cardiologist said to me, this is the biggest crime against humanity since the Holocaust. Hancock came back with this, and it's worth noting that he didn't actually name Bridgen, upon which a lot now hangs, quite extraordinarily since everybody knows who Hancock was talking about. The disgusting and dangerous anti-Semitic, anti-vax, anti-scientific conspiracy theories spouted by a sitting MP this morning are unacceptable and have absolutely no place in our society. Quite the little shopping list of insults, and you can tell from his tone there that he really hates Bridgen. That didn't come from just what Bridgen said. There was nothing in that that provoked that attack. Clearly, Hancock absolutely hates the man. And it was repeated by Rishi Sunak in the Commons, unfortunately under the protection of parliamentary privilege.
Can I join with my right honourable friend in completely condemning those types of comments that we saw this morning in the strongest possible terms? Obviously, it is utterly unacceptable to make linkages and use language like that, and I'm determined that the scourge of anti-Semitism is eradicated. It has absolutely no place in our society, and I know that the previous few years have been challenging for the Jewish community, and I never want them to experience anything like that ever again.
And Bridgen then sues Hancock for libel. Hancock tried to get the lawsuit dismissed from the get-go on the basis of basically faulty presentation. He has not succeeded to date. This is not the same as him not succeeding. And this, possibly not the world's first example of an Andrew Bridgen inaccuracy, is not correct. He says, Mr. Bridgen welcomes the decision of Mrs. Justice Stein to allow this important case to continue to a trial. She has not done that. She has allowed Team Bridgen to go away, come back and try again and correct the errors in their presentation, the pleading as they call it. However, she is confident that they will succeed in correcting their errors, as you will see further down, and hence it's very likely that the trial will go ahead. So you will note the absence of Andrew Bridgen's name in Hancock's tweet. To whom is the tweet in reference to? Everyone knows exactly what those comments were in reference to. Nobody aware of the matter is in any way in any doubt about that. Unfortunately, the fact that absolutely everyone knows who he was referring to doesn't mean that the libel charge cannot get thrown out. So to give a little bit of detail here, Bridgen's application, his pleading, was originally made on the basis of what they called ordinary reference, which is either the actual name of the person, which as we know is absent here, or where the wording makes it clear who the person is to anyone with a general knowledge of that person, with a knowledge, for example, of what they look like. And that's absent here. So Team Hancock came back and asked Team Bridgen to change this to innuendo reference, and that requires that to identify the person, specifics of the specific matter in question be understood, and by identifiable people who, as reasonable people, could be expected to understand what was being talked about. She says in the judgment, ordinarily to establish reference innuendo, the claimant must identify one or more individuals who read the statement complained of and who knew special facts here basically being Andrew Bridgen's tweet, from which reasonable people would reasonably understand the statement to refer to the claimant. As the test is objective, it is not necessary for the purpose of establishing reference to prove that the words were in fact understood by one or more identifiable individuals as referring to the claimant. Team Bridgen says no can do. Team Hancock tries to have the whole thing dismissed. The judge does agree with Hancock on the reference matter. Bridgen needs to redo his application. So how he got to this is a complete mystery to me. It is not correct. It's kind of tempting fate a bit to say it's definitively going ahead when it's actually not. So he has to redo his application, his pleading, on a different basis, on the basis of reference innuendo as opposed to general reference. But this bit is crucial, and I'm substituting in names here to avoid confusion. She says, I agree with Mr. Hancock that, as presently formulated, an essential element of the cause of action is not made out on Mr. Bridgen's pleading. Mr. Bridgen's pleading of reference is defective. However, the pleading is not only capable of being cured, it is highly likely that Mr. Bridgen would have little difficulty establishing reference innuendo. So she's confident that Bridgen can get it right. Then she talks about the special facts, i.e. the tweet in question and the fact of him losing the Tory whip. And then she says what the pleading has not done, and what a proper pleading of reference innuendo is required to do, is to plead that those facts were known to one or more identified readers, or that they were so well known among a class generally that it can be inferred that some of the readers of Mr. Hancock's tweet will have known them, or that a reasonable reader knowing the fact would reasonably believe Mr. Hancock's tweet was of and concerning Mr. Bridgen. So Andrew Bridgen needs to identify people who knew what was going on, and so could be expected to understand who Hancock was talking about. Not that they definitively did know, that bar doesn't need to be crossed, but that they could be expected to know. However, we can identify people who not only can be expected to know who he was talking about, but who actually did know who he was talking about. This was, and still is for that matter, because it's not been deleted, Hancock's tweet. This is all from the comments underneath. Not one part of this speech is relevant to Andrew Bridgen's remarks. To mention the Holocaust is not anti-anything. We know he knows that he's talking about Bridgen, and the Holocaust comment identifies the tweet, because the tweet infamously mentioned the Holocaust. This is an extremely common theme in the comments. This one links in a different tweet from Bridgen. This is Avi Yamini, and he copies and pastes the exact tweet, saying, please point to what exactly is anti-Semitic about his statement. And it had 200,000 views, a very big audience. This is Anthony Hinton, who is a GB News guest, and he mentions Bridgen. This one mentions Bridgen, this one mentions Bridgen, then this one, and this comment under the previous one. And this one, and this one. This bloke is another one who quotes the specific tweet. How is worst since the Holocaust offensive? It neither compares nor denigrates the horrors of the Holocaust. This one mentions the tweet. He was quoting someone else. This one, like Avi Yamini, copies and pastes the exact tweet. And finally, this one again quotes the exact tweet. We have a whole host of Twitter users who were aware of the matter and who knew who and what Matt Hancock was talking about. Not who, as reasonable people, we can hope, would simply be expected to know, but who demonstrably did know. And she says, it is highly likely that Mr. Bridgen would have little difficulty establishing reference innuendo. So it does seem highly likely that Andrew Bridgen's lawyers, however they do it, have plenty of material to link Matt Hancock's tweet to Andrew Bridgen's tweet. All of which, on the face of it, seems absolutely ridiculous, because nobody reading Hancock's tweet was in any doubt whatsoever what it referred to, and it looks like he's simply trying to get his neck out of the noose on the basis of a technicality. But at the end of the day, he is entitled to defend himself. And if Team Bridgen botch the job, then the libel case will be thrown out before it's heard, and justice will not be served. But as we saw, the judge thinks it's very likely to go ahead, and it almost certainly will go ahead, and Hancock will almost certainly be facing a nasty libel trial, which will probably cost him his I'm a celebrity, get me out of here £300,000 payday or something very like it. I put a copy of Hancock's version of his Twitter tirade on my own Twitter. Feel free to repost it if you want. The link is in the description of this video.